Potpourri of items tonight, from developments of the Paw Sox here to Houston, to gas prices, to travel for Labor Day, all that.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
We have a senior vice president from AAA here this evening to talk to us about some of the impact of Hurricane Harvey, what's happening with Houston, gas prices, and just the overall travel pressure on the economy. Not that this gas price environment that we live in right now is anything to wring our hands over, at least comparative to some of the years that we've had where the number 4 was in front of a lot of price per gallons, right? But we'll get to that because we do kind of settle in and we get a little nervous when it goes over 230, 240. You know, are we heading in the wrong direction? So we'll check that out. Nice to have you aboard. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening on the Tuesday edition of Dan York's State of Mind. Let's talk about something local here first. The Paw Sox stadium proposal now has a fixed schedule of hearings. And of course, we've been on this for quite some time. This conversation, we've had, what, a dozen shows on television, never mind on radio, about what's happening with the proposed Paw Sox Stadium. Now, Senator Bill Connelly has made good on his promise to deliver hearings. Ted Nesi has the latest on this.
Let's face it, we have to learn from our mistakes.
Back in June, Senate Finance Committee Chairman William Conley insisted Rhode Island leaders had learned the lessons of 38 Studios and won't okay a Paw Sox Stadium deal without a thorough public review. The Paw Sox want to build a new ballpark on the site of the Apex building, with nearly half the $83 million cost covered by state and Pawtucket taxpayers.
We are going to leave the confines of the State House. We're going to go out and hold Senate hearings, Senate finance hearings in different communities to make sure that everybody in the public who wants to be heard will have a full and fair opportunity to be heard.
On Monday, Conley made good on that promise, announcing 6 hearings over the next month and a half where experts and members of the public will testify about the ballpark plan. The hearings will be September 14th at the State House, September 26th at Tolman High in Pawtucket, October 3rd at URI, October 11th at New England Tech, October 12th at Roger Williams University, and October 19th at Bryant University. And in another effort to signal transparency, the Senate has launched a new website, pawsoxhearings.com, where the public can get information and offer feedback.
You know, I find this to be really intriguing. 6 hearings? Are you kidding me? You know, it's amazing how the pendulum swings, right? We don't do any hearings of any kind of substance on the big stuff, like 38 Studios. We wait 4 years, 5 years, picking our nose over this, right? And now we have what is an admitted hand-wringing on the part of the Senate and even the House, which is yet to schedule hearings, over the 38 Studios, or how they call it. What do they call it? The post-38 Studios malaise, and trying to poke through the transparency problem that we have and see if we can disperse the cloud of 38 Studios that hangs over a stadium deal, which may need to be improved, but for the most part is already transparent, is pretty self-explanatory, is more or less on the formula that we already operate at McCoy Stadium, is a better deal for this particular market than any other market in the International League, right? So what happens with these hearings? Well, we'll see, but here's my prediction. A half a dozen or so people who like the Paw Sox will show up. The Paw Sox management, of course, will show up and explain the deal. The senators will kind of hide under the desk in terms of their thumbs up on the whole thing. And a long line of people who say, we don't have the money, no public-private partnerships in this state, 38 Studios is the end of the game, will all dominate the first few hearings. And the last 3 hearings, they'll be gassing, like, because there's nothing left productive to say. Here's the net result. This feeling that the stadium idea is wrong because there's just too many complaints. The General Assembly will look at it in totality and say, you know what, the public doesn't want this. The governor will go running for the hinterlands here, and there'll be no schedule of a vote on the matter until maybe in the winter, and they'll postpone that as much as they possibly can. Now, it may end up that nobody else can put a competitive bid in to make this thing work. But Worcester's doing everything they can diligence-wise to make this happen. And all this 6-hearing process farce is going to provide is that opportunity for the city of Worcester. I'm telling you, I'm all about transparency and good government, but this is a joke. And just about everybody around the whole thing knows it, and off the record admits it. All right, let's move on here. Can we just check in on what's happening with North Korea? Not that I have any insight on this. You know, we're all just kind of crossing our fingers that Kim Jong-un has a better day today. Here's a headline. The president says all options are on the table. So at least it wasn't Guam, right? But here's the thing. That's not true. All options are not on the table. Because all options means military. And we're not going to use our military. We're not going to check in with Seoul and look for winking permission to make an operation there. We are going to sit this thing out. Japan will continue to kind of chew on its own sleeve, understandably, about the whole thing. China may step in and say something like, hey, Kim, you're on your own here, we told you. But for the most part, what does that mean? This is a real quandary. Nobody's got an answer. But Donald Trump suggesting all options on the table are just more rhetoric, certainly not substantive. At some juncture, with all the Korean experts that we've had on this show, we probably ought to be discussing some kind of wink and nod to North Korea that they are a nuclear, at least JV power, because that's what they want. All right, clearly there's a little bit of turbulence underneath all of the hurricane conversation, which we'll tackle in the next section, or next segment, as we say. This challenge that we have with the Russian probe just got a little bit more interesting. New York Times headline here tells the story, and there's a lot to this. Again, kind of buried underneath the Apreo stuff and Hurricane Harvey, but this one smarts for the Trump administration.
In 2016, just as primary season was heating up, Michael Cohen, a longtime attorney for the Trump Organization, emailed Dmitry Peskov, chief spokesman for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Cohen sought the Kremlin's help with a proposed Trump Tower project in Moscow. Cohen wrote, I respectfully request someone, preferably you, contact me so that I might discuss the specifics as well as arranging meetings with the appropriate individuals. It does not appear Peskov responded. Today, Cohen told CBS News' Jeff Pegues that he discussed the deal with Mr. Trump 3 times and that Mr. Trump signed a non-binding letter of intent in October 2015. By that time, candidate Trump had surged to the top of the Republican polls.
And I'll get along with Putin.
Cohen also traded emails with Felix Sater, a business associate involved in the Trump Tower Moscow project. Sater claimed to have deep ties inside the Kremlin. Our boy can become president of the USA and we can engineer it, Mr. Sater wrote. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process. In a statement today, Cohen described Trump Tower Moscow as, quote, a building proposal that did not succeed and nothing more. The project was scrapped shortly after Cohen emailed Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman.
The campaign is on its way to victory.
Cohen did not take a formal role in Mr. Trump's campaign, but regularly appeared on television to praise the candidate. Negotiations over Trump Tower Moscow occurred between September 2015 and January 2016, a period during which Mr. Trump praised Putin and Russia.
Think of Putin, pretty tough cookie, right? If Putin likes me and if he thinks I'm a good, smart person, which, I mean, I hope he believes it, I am. Actually, he's right, I am brilliant. You know that, right?
6 months later, the president denied having business dealings in Russia.
I have nothing to do with Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia, and even for anything.
Well, yeah. You know, and not contained in that story is one of the email correspondence that has been leaked out of the congressional files here that suggests that one of these guys inside the Trump administration was talking to the other about how their boy, meaning Donald Trump, will be all set up with Putin once this deal gets done. This is, I think we're just kind of overtired from the Russian conversation, but this is actually a bit of spiking new news here, and it can't make anybody any more comfortable in the Trump crowd about what's going to go on with Robert Mueller. Remember, during the campaign, Donald Trump said, as you see a piece of it, he had no interest in Russia and he had no business even pending in Russia. So he's talking about having no business pending in Russia, and they're talking about building what could have been the biggest building on the planet. right? All right. We'll find out what's going on in Houston and how that's going to impact us economically. But first, let me just remind you that the Navigant Credit Union folks are right there for you with your Card Valet app. If you ever wanted to have all your banking right in the palm of your hand, I'm not just talking about online banking, just the surface stuff. I'm talking about digging deep as much as you possibly want to on the fly. Card Valet is the app that you want to have, and it provides everything you need exclusively from Navigant Credit Union. Member NCUA, online at navigantcu.org. It's the most high-tech banking you can do right at your fingertips. Card Valet. Right back. It is impossible to ignore what's happening in Texas. I think we're all just kind of shaking our heads like this, right? I mean, you've seen enough headlines and stories, I'm sure, on this, but I think we've got some for you just in case you've been under a rock somewhere. Of course, the gas price issue is something that I almost feel guilty talking about, because comparative to the stress and economic duress that they have down there, us getting hit by 20 or 30 cents is kind of a yawner, but here's the latest on it.
As Hurricane Harvey slammed into the Texas coast, it shut down some of the biggest oil and gas refineries in the country. The Houston area accounts for more than a quarter of the nation's gasoline production. This map shows all of the oil and gas operations in the storm's path. Nearly 20% of the country's daily gasoline refining capacity is now offline. That's over 2.5 million barrels a day, including the ExxonMobil refinery in Baytown, Texas. It's America's second largest, typically producing 560,000 barrels daily. Gas prices are up 4 cents nationally already.
Labor Day is going to be more expensive for drivers now.
Exactly. We already anticipated that prices would go up about 5 cents around the country. Now maybe even 10 cents or even higher in some places.
Tamara Johnson from AAA expects those places to include hard-hit Gulf states.
A lot is still yet to be known in terms of refinery damage, and if refiners are down for an extended period of time, we could see those higher gas prices upwards of 20 to 30 cents.
When Katrina devastated New Orleans 12 years ago, gas prices spiked nationally by 46 cents, and any increase in energy costs from Harvey could extend beyond pain at the pump. University of Maryland economist Peter Morisi.
People will see higher prices trickle through. Not just higher gas prices, but also perhaps higher prices for fruits and vegetables, as it costs more to get them to market, and a higher price for the airline ticket to go visit your mother at Christmas time.
Gas price spikes after hurricanes are not uncommon, and they're typically short-lived, but that assumes the oil refineries are able to get back up and running quickly. Experts say the longer they're offline, the larger the price increase, and the longer it will last.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Lloyd Albert is from AAA, big honcho, one of our lead guys in the organization. What do you think? Welcome, by the way. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on, Dan. I think your comments earlier were very well taken. In the big scheme of things, the devastation that we're seeing down in the Gulf Coast is amazing.
I feel like I got to take a shower just actually talking about it, based on what we're seeing down there and the horrifying experience these folks are having.
Yeah, and it's not even over. I mean, there's several days more of rain to come, and the impacts thereafter will last for a long, long time. So gas prices is one little tranche here that we're talking about. But the fact of the matter is that our national production has been impacted by the storm in a very significant way. Right now, about 15 or 20% of the total refining capacity in the country is offline because of the storm. And the question is how many more refineries will be under assault as the storm turns east and north as it appears to be doing.
What's the time lag between a refinery having operational trouble and market price reaction to it?
I think the anticipation of the refinery going down is enough to make prices start to go up, and I think we saw that a little bit this weekend, some parts of the country more than others.
Why? Where in the chain does that increase begin?
I think what fundamentally happens at the retailer level is that they're going to see their next shipment, which could be in a day or two from now, and the NYMEX, New York Mercantile Exchange, the prices are now 4 or 5 cents higher. So they say, let me raise my prices by 3 or 4 cents in anticipation of that delivery coming in the next day or so. So the lag time is very, very short. On the back end, it's always interesting to see how long they keep the prices high when their prices go down. So it's, you know, it's supply and demand at some point, but also a little bit of the market, you know, the New York Mercantile Exchange market forces at work as well.
Economic impact on this, who knows?
We were predicting on Friday that prices in Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts might go up by a penny or two in the next 3 or 4 days, and that's exactly what's happened. I think prices now are up from Friday morning till this morning. They're up 2.5 pennies, basically. It's not terrible, certainly, but I think people are, you know, also remembering Katrina, where interestingly we saw prices at about $2.40 a gallon a week before the storm hit, and 5 days later prices have gone up 75 or 80 cents a gallon, which is very dramatic. Again, there were spills there, and certainly a very significant storm event. But within 4 or 5 weeks after Katrina, prices went back down to $2.35 and $2.40 a gallon, and by Christmas that year they were down to $2.15 a gallon. So you know, I anticipate over the next several weeks that we're going to see a little bit of a higher price here locally, and then the price is going back down sometime in the October timeframe.
You don't see any $3 per gallon spiking. I mean, it's the 3 numbers, but when we get close to the 3 number, that's when people start to go, oh, big changes in the economy. But then again, all you got to do is look at the news.
Yeah.
Just to be able to reconcile it for yourself, right?
Well, we remember the $4 number. That was back in July of 2008. No one forgets that. But at $3, that was a pretty unsettling feeling, too. I think we've all become pretty comfortable with a stable pricing situation right now, somewhere in that $2.25, $2.35 range. And that's where we're probably going to end up in the next several weeks after the storm issues abate.
Well, we all, I think, kind of wonder a couple of things. We wonder whether the stock market's going to continue to perform at its level, and how long the two will be in front of our gas prices on any kind of continuing basis. We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. Oy vey, huh? I don't know. Oh, I mean, I'm reflecting on my own, you know, reaction, but I'm sure it mirrors yours. Looking at this, and you know, if you live in the vicinity, there's so many folks who are caught by news organizations, volunteers who are not really organized to the Red Cross necessarily, who are just saying, listen, I'm tired of seeing that on the couch. I came in with my boat to help or whatever. And interestingly enough, the local authorities are wide open for people to come down there and do what they can. I mean, this thing is well past what we typically have in terms of resources. Now, you're not running Red Cross. AAA obviously takes a big picture look at all those things in terms of expense to get from one place to another. But you have some interesting thoughts, Lloyd, on the actual refinery process down there.
Yeah, what we saw happen last Thursday is four key refineries in the Corpus Christi area decided to come offline. The question then became, will others follow suit, particularly in the Houston area, where there's about 10 or 11 refineries there, and the question was, where will the storm go? At this point today, we're asking ourselves, in the aftermath of Corpus Christi, how quickly can those 4 refineries come back online? They need power, and they need an open port. So I think both of those things are starting to happen as we speak, and they might come online faster than we think. Houston is a different question, where the flood issues are very dramatic there, and we got pipelines, we have valves, etc., that are underwater at this point. That's problematic. The other very big question right now is, does the storm veer over and affect Port Arthur, Beaumont, and then Lake Charles in Louisiana? When you get to that point, you could have literally 30% of refining capacity in this country offline. That is pretty dramatic. So the question is, how quickly will Corpus Christi come back online? Where does the storm continue over the next day, day and a half, or 2 days into Thursday? So all those questions are very important. In the meantime, we got pipelines heading up into the Chicago area, the big Explorer pipeline, we got the Colonial pipeline that goes all the way to Linden, New Jersey from Houston. Both are pumping gasoline at this point, and diesel and jet fuel. So we are, we're muddling through at this point, but a lot of question marks remain as we watch the storm path.
Do you guys
continue.
take a look at airline prices as well? Is that in your bailiwick?
We do to some extent, and there's been a lot of stability in the jet fuel price over the past 2 or 3 years, which has brought some fares down. Now we're seeing some even lower fares with international flights out of Rhode Island here. But the gasoline issue is one that has to be taken into perspective, as you said earlier, given the utter devastation that people are dealing with down there.
Labor Day is always a spike time anyway, right?
And that's one of the factors that came into play here. All of a sudden this is happening as we come into a very busy travel season. A couple of years ago, last time we had measured the travel volume, about 36 million people were traveling 50 miles or more away from home. So again, a busy travel season. Gas prices maybe shooting up a little bit, but again, I think we're going to see much less of an impact in this area. We are not so reliant on Gulf oil as other parts of the country, the Southeast, Florida, etc., very dependent on the pipelines heading out of the Texas area. We get a lot of our oil from the New York Harbor area, so we're a little bit immune, I think, at this point. Although I saw a storm path this morning of a tropical storm heading into the Carolinas, and the first thing I thought about was, does that mean disruption here on the East Coast? I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm not a meteorologist.
So long term, you guys study these trends on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, I'm sure. How long do you think will be in the 2 per gallon, when things are, quote, normal category? For a long time?
That's a great question, because I remember distinctly, Dan, in 2008 they were talking about the peak oil theory, that we had already peaked in terms of what we can get out of the earth and that prices would just ramp up forever. And all of a sudden we've seen very stable market over the past 18 months or so, and I think we are, to answer your question specifically, I think we're going to hover around that 230, 240. Read a lot from the big banks, Goldman Sachs and others, who are talking about a price of somewhere around 225, 230.
For what long? For what projected length of time?
I think for the foreseeable future. I think,
which is what, a year, 10? What is it?
I think 2 or 3 years potentially. I think OPEC is very sensitive to the issue. The prices tanked. Earlier this year, we saw oil prices down at $26 a barrel earlier this year. We're at $46.50 this morning, actually down from a couple of weeks ago.
You see a real correlation between that gas price on the tank, on the pump, and people traveling. I mean, it's a direct correlation.
There is a direct correlation.
Psychological more than anything else. I mean, obviously you need to have the cash to be able to travel, but it really is in people's heads.
Yeah, the supply and demand truly works here, but there is a psychological factor with retailers, for example, trying to anticipate the next event. We know geopolitical issues come into play. We know that weather comes into play. So there's a lot of forces at work here. So and we're benefiting right now from a very stable market.
So more of the story is we get a little hit. It's probably temporary. Take a deep breath and say a prayer for these folks in Houston, right?
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thanks. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Final word and we come back. Stay with us. So last week we had this story in Providence where a elementary school principal got jammed up for not reporting what was the appearance of some kind of physical harassment alleged against a gym teacher. The fiasco that this thing is outrageous, and the idea that that teacher is singularly, exclusively charged criminally, although a misdemeanor, still charged criminally, and has kind of lost her gig is perplexing and I think disturbing. And we're going to take a look at that story tomorrow here on Our State of Mind. We'll see you at 3 o'clock on the radio as well, till 6, every afternoon on WPRO. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.